Welcome to All Stars. I'm Sal, and I'm well joined today, as always, by Josh. Josh, hey,
Hello
how's it going, man?
again. Another month.
Yay! Another
This
month,
makes you
another episode.
hyper. Yeah, this makes you hyper aware of how fast time is. Like I'm
Yeah.
already well aware of how time fast is. Like every day I do the same thing pretty much. It's just working
hmm
comics every single day. Having this in, when I text you to be like, oh man, it's already been like another month. We should talk.
Yeah.
It like there's a part of my brain that is like, oh no, that was like a week ago. Right?
Yeah.
Like I talked to you like a week ago. And it's like, no. That was a full month ago. It's
Yeah.
like, holy
I'm
crap.
having the exact same like time dilation problem
Hmm.
where I'm like, I should probably text Josh and like talk to him about whether we should coordinate what day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to seem too eager because literally I just did that a week ago. Nope,
Oh, I
that
know,
was a
yeah, but you're
month
like, nope.
ago. Like, because it
Yeah.
wouldn't be a let's do this in 3 weeks. This is a, well, we need to figure out what to do in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I
So,
know. Well, you and I, we text about other junk in general,
yeah.
including Hook, the continued Hook conversations. I
Oh
watched
my
Hook
god.
the night after we recorded last,
Nice.
um, and I bought that vinyl of Hook. But you and I text about other junk. We should scroll through our texts, and that will be our topics. Some of it we
I
can't talk about, but
I
some of
feel like
the
that's
we
probably
can.
not a good idea.
We can
Uh,
talk about comic books. We're talking
yeah,
about
well,
comic books in our text for the most part.
that's
For the
true.
most
It
part.
it it typically is. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Recently, yeah, you were like, "Uh-oh." Um, apropos of comics, I guess, like, let's try and write this off by being like, "Hey, Night Terrors, that's a thing
Oh yeah, you want to talk about
we're
Night
working
Terrors? We
on."
talk about Night
Maybe
Terrors
we
and
should,
Green Arrow.
yeah. We'll
Yeah, I was
talk
gonna
about
shoot.
that, and then we'll
Oh, but
transition because I know it's gonna go someplace.
yeah, we can talk about Night Terrors. I mean, Night Terrors, the way I've been pitching it to people. Obviously, it's a big DC event that we're doing in the summer and July and August.
Yep.
But the way I've been pitching it to people is it's basically like Freddy versus DC. Like Nightmare on DC Street. That's like the best
Yeah.
way to explain it to people.
Ugh,
Um,
that's fun.
last I've been working on this for a while. I started working on this before uh, Dark Crisis was over.
Yeah.
Um, and I think you and I talked before where I was like, I'm out. No more events.
Yes.
No more events.
Mhm.
But they pull you back in.
They pull you back
Um,
in.
but back last summer, we were having a lot of conversations with different creators about the plans for the year and who was going to do what and which creators are going to work on what big stories and which creators were going to do what events. And people started claiming stuff and being like, well, I want to do this one, I want to do that one, I want to do this. And then it was like, well, we knew we were going to do something really big in July and August. Like there was definitely like a coming down from the mountain. July and
Yeah.
August were big. And some of the pitches were coming in and they were like multiverse. And I was like, oh no. like
We
like
just
I
did it.
did my thing. I did it. So I'm like, all right, cool, no more multiverse. I was just talking to a creator yesterday and I was convincing them not to do anything with the multiverse. But I was like, we did multiverse, and then it was like alternate realities, and I was like, dude, and then it was like time travel, and I was like, no more time travel. And I was
Yeah.
like, what can we do? And you know me, like I'm very much a toy based guy. Like you can tell around my office, and then on the other side of here, there's just countless boxes of unopened toys.
Yep.
Um, I got a lot of toys, and so I definitely think about that stuff too. And I was like, well, let's just have some fun. That was a big piece of this. Like, let's just have fun, not be so serious. And then
Yeah.
I was actually driving to meet last August. I was driving to meet with Ben Abernathy, and Ben Abernathy's a big horror guy. So am I. Like we both love her. I mean, Ben Abernathy created Deceased. Like that's like this is a person who really does think about horror a lot.
Yeah.
And one of his favorite movies, one of my favorite movies, is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh.
And so I was driving out to meet him, and I remember we were meeting for like beer and pizza on like a Sunday afternoon, and I was like, "Oh man, we could do something with nightmares because it kind of gives us the best of both worlds. It's technically not an alternate reality, but allows us to throw our characters into different worlds, different
Yeah.
settings. Get some cool toys in their end. Like we got nightmare versions of characters. We could do all kinds of fun stuff with this."
Yeah.
Then I was like, "Oh, let's make a new villain, and play around with the idea of nightmares through a new character, a new villain. Because also we need more big bads. It can't always be Dark Side.
Right.
And let's create somebody that's a little more grounded. Like take a grounded story, like an actual tragic. Because his new villain, his name's Insomnia. You'll learn throughout the series goes, he has actually a very like tragic backstory to why he's doing what he's doing. I kind of want you to get to the ending and actually have a moment of like,
Of
oh,
like,
that person might actually be right. You know, like,
best
that's
villains.
always the best villains if you can get
Yeah.
to get them there. Like he starts off awful and cheesy, and then you start going through, and like he's just this demented figure, and you start realizing like, oh no, there's actually steps that got him here,
Yeah.
and maybe by the ending, I'm hoping you might read it and be like, oh shit, this person has a right for they should have revenge. You know, like
Yeah.
maybe they have earned it. But so I got through to Ben. I'm like, okay, I figured it all out. And I pitched to him, and he was like, okay, I don't know, let's talk about this. So we just went back and forth, and he was like, well, how do we do it like this? How do you do it like that? And I was like, well, I still want to feel big, but not Dark Crisis big, and I still want it to be fun and horror and kind of play with slashers and play with different kinds of horror and start talking to the creators. And some of the creators were like, oh, I'm going full body horror with this. Like, we're
Uh-huh.
going to go for it. But really, it was just like, let's just have fun, tell a horror story. And the sort of opening of it is that, and this is out there, but it's like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. There's a dead body inside the Hall of Justice, but it's in a secure area that only the three of them have access to. And so it's like, okay, what happened? And the dead body it's one of their older Justice League villains. And so
Mm.
it's like, what happened for this to get here? Like this body to even get here? And
It was
then
planted there or something. Like, we don't know how it
yeah.
could
And so, well, for Batman, there's a scene. Deadman is in the scene by this point, and Deadman, they don't see him, but Deadman plays a narrator for the whole event.
love it.
And it's been really interesting working with him and his relationship from relationships with death, and then dreams and nightmares, sort of these connective tissue between him and the villain and the other like villain henchman characters and stuff. But
Yeah.
he's narrating it, and when they're going into the room, he's just like, Batman, I know you are excited about a locked door mystery. Like, I know you are excited right now. Like, just crack a smile, buddy. Just smile. I know you're a little pumped that you have a case.
Right.
Like, um, but then the investigation of that murder and how that body got there sort of sends them all in different directions. Like Batman and Deadman go one place, Superman goes someplace else, Wonder Woman goes someplace else.
Love it.
And then that investigation blows up very quickly. And that causes all the problems. That's why we have all the different minis and all the books that kind of get affected by it. And then, one of the things we wanted with Night Terror, I'm a continuity junkie. I
Yep.
think it can be used as a tool, not a crutch, not it shouldn't be changed to it. You should try to find ways to utilize it and also try to like navigate your way through it if you can.
Sure.
But one of the things we made this decision. We were like, okay, when Night Terror is over, because we've definitely been kind of muddy with continuity, and some of
Yeah.
that, we had a lot of events going on at the same time. But we wanted to be like, once Night Terror hits, the line is a line. Like,
Mm.
we're never gonna make it where the comment I always use in meetings is it's like, it's never gonna all be Monday at the exact same time. Like not everyone's starting work to be a superhero on Monday and their books the exact same time.
Yeah.
But at least we can have a way to make things a little bit cleaner and find ways to make it a little bit more for those people who pay attention. Like I pay attention. For those
Mhm.
people who pay attention to feel recognized and be like, yes, we heard you, and we're
Love
gonna
it.
make. That's one of the goals for Night Terror is coming out of that, because like the stuff for Night Terror will immediately impact other books and will affect things, and some of the mysteries we've been laying out will start coming together. And oh, dude, so this is free comic book day.
Yeah.
'Cause we're doing two free books. We're doing one that is the Night Terror one, and then we're doing one that is called the Dawn of DC Primer, and that's mostly going to deal with Amanda Waller and Dawn of DC and sort of like the shenanigans that Amanda Waller has been up to in the
Right.
DC universe, like behind the scenes, to start to remind the reader of that, but also start to escalate it, so you kind of see where these pieces are coming together, and how Amanda Waller is going to play a role in all the Dawn DC books.
Sweet.
Then we have the Night Terror one that actually comes out on Free Comic Day. Dude, it was so crazy. Like we were talking about it back and forth, and I was like, "Well, let's do a story with Damien," and me and Amaranth were talking about it, and I was like, "Well, I haven't written it yet because I wanted who was going to draw it. Because once I know who's going to draw it, then I can, you know." And Ben, who had been talking to Chris Pacello for like years, was like, he could do it.
Mm.
And I was like, he's like, but he has to read the script first. And I was like, well, I guess I know I'm doing this week.
Yeah.
And
Writing that script.
it was only 10 pages, but I was like, I love Chris Pacello. I love him.
Yeah.
Right. And, part of my obsession with wraparound covers, not a lot of people notice this maybe, but like almost all of my issue ones at DC are all wraparounds now. They
Huh.
have been for a few years, like Robin, Infinite Frontier, Dark Crisis, Batman
Yeah.
and Superman, Green Arrow, another book that's coming out later this year, Superman. They're all wraparounds. Night
Oh,
Terror is the
yeah.
only one that isn't actually, but most of my books are all like the issue ones are usually wraparounds, and some of that became because of Generation X. Like you go back
Oh,
and you do
yeah.
Generation X, right? That one that was foil, that was Chris
Mhm.
Michello, right? And then after that, they did Age of Apocalypse Alpha, and that was that Joe Mad one, which we
Yeah.
can talk about Joe Mad too. I'm gonna do a quick segue.
Yeah,
When I
please.
was when I was a little kid, I found out there was going to be a Marvel convention in town. It was just a Marvel one, but it was Stan Lee. It was like Stan Lee doing these like little mini pop up conventions back in the early '90s,
Oh, that's cool.
and you basically would go. Stan Lee would talk, do the Stan Lee show, you get your Stan Lee book signed, and then I thought it was gonna be like a convention because I used to go to like the Shrine, and the Shrine would have this like huge room that was like a I say convention, but it was like a giant swap meet, but a
Yeah.
convention. It was just the vendors. There was like one
Yep.
room for panels, and then it's mostly people sell stuff. And they had one that was really small, and it was only Marvel stuff that I at the time. But so before this happened, in my brain, because I already gone to a couple conventions at that point when I was like 12 years old, I already been to a few different cons, and so I was like, my room was a mess. My room was a total mess in my house. Right, it was just comics everywhere, toys
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, I had gone and taken those old Wizard poster magazines and tore them up,
Oh, yeah. Put them up on the wall. I
wallpapered.
had
Yep.
Yep. Using, like, duct
Oh,
tape, just whatever tape was available in the house. Yeah.
yeah. So I went through, did the whole thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was like, man, you know, uh, my parents were like, okay, if you clean your room before this Marvel convention, we will give you $100.
Oh my god.
Dude, I was like, and what's funny, so you bet your ass I cleaned my room. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I cleaned it good. They were saying, but the whole thing was you could have $100 you spend at the Marvel Con. They weren't going to say how
Exactly.
many
It's not
$100.
$100 you have to go in the bank or take, with you for
Nope,
lunch or anything.
nope. So
Nope,
I
just
was
for the
just like,
convention.
we're doing this. So I clean my room, like really get out of there. And as a 12-year-old me, right? So it's just a kid. So I clean the shit out of that room.
Yeah.
We get to the convention, and it's real small again, but it was fun. Stan Lee, and the line for Stan Lee was crazy. So I actually did not. I met Stan Lee later in life, but I did not meet him in that moment.
Okay.
I went into the Marvel vendor area, and that area blew my mind because it was just Marvel product, but it was like nothing you couldn't get at a comic store.
Sure.
And I remember at the time thinking like there would be more, but there just wasn't. But I bought a ton of stuff, and one of the things I bought, I bought some posters and stuff. One of the things they had was like that Generation X foil wraparound.
Yep.
They had it by itself as like a little print, but it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
foil. It was an
I've
all foil.
seen I've seen them make those. Like, I've seen that available where, like, if they've done, like, those gorgeous and now, of course, like, joke foil covers, you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
get them as, like, a print, or at least you
yeah,
could have
yeah.
gotten them. I guess they were, like, proofs or maybe they
Yeah, I don't know
produced
what,
them.
but boy, I had one.
That's
So I
awesome.
have the other thing I bought that day, I'll always remember this. I was talking to my wife about this last night. I bought a Deadpool poster. It was done by Joe Mad, where he's like breaking through glass, he's shooting bullets.
I know
It
that
was
one.
just super cool, dude. I love it. And I had it up in my room for a while, and obviously all that stuff is gone. It's all been trashed and stuff. I mean, that probably got
Yeah.
trashed back in like '98 or so, and like,
Right.
but last night I was like, you know what? I kind of it's like that nostalgia clicks in for a minute,
Mhm,
and I
mhm.
was like, I want to get that poster. I bet I can find it, dude. The irony of it, I found it on eBay. I didn't buy it, but I found it on eBay. It was $100,
Ugh.
and I was like, "Oh man, that's why I cleaned my
$100?
room." Yeah.
I could have bought it. Just gotta
Oh,
clean my
what's funny? I
room and I'm
remember
good to
that
go.
day. My mom was like, "You did what?" To my dad because my dad
Yeah. Oh.
he was like, "Yeah, I told him he could get $100 if he cleaned his room," and she was like, "Of course he's gonna clean it for $100. You could have said 50 and he would have cleaned it."
Right.
Uh,
You should just
and so
told
I
him
got
to clean his room. We have authority over this kid. We could tell him to do whatever we want.
No, I got the Extinction Agenda. Not Extinction Agenda, was it? Yeah, Extinction Agenda. I got the collection of that, and I got a bunch of other
Nice.
stuff. But it was all Marvel stuff with Deadpool poster. Anyway, so wraparound covers
Yeah.
going all the way back. Joe Mad, but again, like Cliffhanger. I was a big Cliffhanger guy. So you had like Joe Mad and Jason Campbell and Chris Michello.
Yes.
Steampunk and stuff. And like I've been always been a big fan of his. And so Ben was like, "You have to write it first, and he has to read it, and then he will decide." And I was like, "Okay, cool." But I was like, I'm writing this for him because I know the kind of stuff he likes to do. But I
Yeah.
was so intimidated,
Yeah.
so intimidated. Um, and so I wrote it. I turned it in, and those pages look amazing. They're
Nice.
amazing and they're bonkers. He was like, "Yeah, I'll do this. This is cool." Uh, and I gave him a lot of freedom to like do his thing, but he went for it. Like there's there's a 2-page spread that I planned. He did, and it looks amazing. And then there's another one. It was a 2-page spread. It was written as 2 pages, and he did it as a 2-page spread, and it looks awesome. Like every step of the way in this thing, and it's basically a Freddy like nightmare story with Damien,
Yeah.
but it is so cool. Like every page as it was coming in, I was like, I can't even believe this, And so I was like sending them to James and being like, look at this, look at this. That's like one of his white whales, which me too. I was like, if I can work with this dude once. And so now my goal is to try to get one of those pages from him, like try to buy one of them because
Oh
they just
yeah.
so cool and it's just fun. And it's just Damien dealing with nightmares. And it's fun because Damien is the kind of person to be like, nightmares, man. Like,
Dude.
because he goes into it with like, and some of the characters are like this. Like they go into it and they're like, oh, clearly I'm in a nightmare.
Right.
So it's my rules, like there's some characters that kind of go into it like that, Some characters are going to figure it out fairly quickly. They're going to be like, oh, it's a nightmare. Oh, I'll be fine. And they realize other stuff has to happen. And,
Yeah.
traveling
They're in
from your
his world
nightmare
now,
to somebody
bitch. Yeah.
else's. What's that? Oh, yeah. Well, some people are going hard, like Dream Warriors and stuff like that. So it's been really fun. But yeah, the free comic day thing with him, I mean, it was just cool. Those pages were coming in, It was just, I can't even believe this because that's an artist I've liked my entire life.
Yeah, he was at he was like a surprise appearance at Baltimore Comic Con. I want to say like at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing his pages in person they're huge, and there's just it's incredible. My wife Tiffany is a huge. She loves Way of the Weird from Aaron and him and the Doctor Strange series. And like,
I have it right here. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a great book, and his art is second to none. He's such a good fit for magic and for horror and like.
Yeah, well, that's the important part about Night Terrors. I have Dead Man actually say this in the book, and so does Tana at some point. It is not magic. What they're dealing with is magic. It is all very much a nightmare horror thing. We wanted to walk that line, like, because we were like, because there was magic stuff in Lazarus Planet. They were like, with this one, this is horror. So we even with the I almost ruined stuff. There's stuff coming that will make people excited, but it is a horror thing.
Yes, and please enjoy and pick up the free comic book day issue this May.
Yeah, but it's fun. Like we've been working on that, and then Howard Porter is doing the specials that start and stop it,
Yeah.
And it's just it's so cool. Every time a page comes in, I'm like, oh man, the covers are real cool, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just fun doing a horror thing, like unleashing. Oh, dude, I gotta tell you though, I mentioned this before. Like when I was working on it, I got nervous because I was like, this is a horror book.
Right.
So
is it going to get too
horror? Yeah. Well, I don't want to get like obviously I know the line. There's a line I can't cross, but it's like, and I also know the trickery of comics. You can do things in silhouette. You put things in the dark, and you can kind of mess with it. But that's also part of the challenging, fun thing about comics. Because every once in a while, when somebody gives you a limitation, when they give you a limitation, that limitation sometimes can unlock story. Like when I was doing Ghosted years ago. When I was doing Ghosted, somebody from Skybound was like, there was an issue, there was going to be torture in it. And he was like, could you not have them torture? We feel like there's been a lot of torture lately. And they're like, can you not do torture? And I was like, I'm going to rewrite this whole beginning. But then I made it about how they weren't going to torture him. Like that was the whole thing where the character's like, we're not going to torture you. We think torture has been played out. And so we're gonna get this information to you other ways. And I had the character actually say those things, and it actually made the scene way better because of it, like it's one of my favorite issues of Ghosted. So it's the same thing here with this, where it's like knowing some of the limitations makes you be really creative with how to make it scary and make it horror. Yeah. But there's definitely stuff that I was like, at some point somebody's gonna tell me this is too much. We haven't got there yet. We haven't got there yet. Nobody
good.
So we'll see. But yeah, it's been really fun, and like, it's definitely like adding more to my workload this year than I originally intended. Like back last year, because even last year I was like, okay, I'm working on these things, and then now we're adding to it. So I just don't sleep at night. It's basically what
great. Oh, perfect.
I was thinking about this morning about how like, I'm usually in my office at 7 a.m. and I was thinking about people who like get to work at 9, and I'm like, that seems so weird to me now.
Yeah,
like, I couldn't even imagine starting to work at 9 now. I'd be so far behind the day.
Right.
It's like it's so crazy. Like now I'm usually in here at 7 and I work until 5:30. And then I come in and do little stuff later if I have to. But
yeah,
I'm pulling in a good like 10 hours easy. Even then that's not enough. I could pull in 12 if I wanted to, but it's I got kids.
If I didn't have this pesky responsibility looming over me,
but we spent a lot of time on that, and then but Night Terror, that's a big thing that doesn't come out until July. the free comic day is in May, and the DC primer is also in May.
Oh, nice.
But then then there's Green Arrow, and Green
Yes.
Arrow is my baby that I've wanted to do for my entire life. Like I remember being
So,
a kid and having my superpowers toy and being
oh
like,
yeah,
"This dude is cool. I love Green Arrow." And just,
yeah.
but what we were gonna ask, we were gonna say,
Oh, I was gonna ask, what was your what was the run on Green Arrow that got you in? What was your like, oh, this is it? And because I know
uh,
it couldn't have been the Neil Adams run.
no, no, no. My pattern with him is weird because it's like most things. When you start getting into a character, you kind of land when you land, and then everything starts bleeding away from you.
Fill it all in, yeah.
Yeah, so actually my introduction to him was through Green Lantern, but much, much later. There was an
Mm,
issue of Green Lantern. It was interesting, right? Because it's like in Green Lantern, because I had just started reading Green Lantern, and Green Lantern was like, oh, Coast City gets destroyed in this issue. It's like Green Lantern 45,
yes.
and then 46, it might be
Oh,
47 actually,
yeah,
is like,
which is still written by the original writer, and it's like, he's gonna be like, "It's gonna be okay." And then Ron
yeah,
Mars jumps in and goes like, "No, it's not."
no, yeah, and then you have a Green Arrow issue in between those two stories, between Emerald Twilight and between the destruction of Coast City. There is just a random Green Arrow issue in the middle. And I remember reading that and being like, "Yeah, I should read some Green Arrow." And I'd always liked the character. Like I always think it's interesting, and I think this is a interesting thing about fandom, where people gravitate toward a character. They love a
Yep,
certain character, and they might discover that character through different things, but then they don't necessarily read the books.
yeah.
They just love that character. I remember when I worked at the comic book store, this guy came in one time, and he was all dressed in Green Lantern gear. Like he had a ring on. He would always wear Green Lantern shirts, hoodies. He'd always come into the comic book store, and he would come in like once a month. But what he would do is he would buy Green Lantern merchandise. So he's like, "Oh, that Green Lantern wallet, I want that. Oh, you
Okay.
got that Green Lantern shirt, I want that." And one day I was like, "Yo, like, do you want to buy some Green Lantern comic books?" And he was like, I've never read a Green Lantern comic book before." And I was like, "Where is this from then?" And he was like, "John Stewart in the cartoon." That was
That'll do
his.
it. Yep.
That was it. And I was like, "All right, let's get you some Green Lantern comic with John Stewart." We went
Yeah.
and we got some Mosaic. Like we were able to find the books and get it to him. But it was really fascinating how he had such a love of this character before
Yeah.
he read the comics. So I was kind of like that a little with Green Arrow, like just in the sense of like I had seen him in other stuff. And obviously, it's a long time ago, so it's like superpowers. It's like
Y
I had a toy.
yeah.
And then I'm like 11. I'm like 11 years old when Coast City gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And so it's like around then. So you start reading stuff, and then you start picking up things. So then it was like Longbow Hunters. But then right after Longbow, like way after Longbow Hunters, but right after I started reading Green Arrow and trying to consume it, and just reading stuff, like you start picking up the books, and there's so much mythology already built in. But
Yeah.
then Zero Hour hits, and Zero Hour is like, oh, here's this new start for Ollie, but here's also Connor Hawk. And because of
Exactly.
my age, this is my history with almost all the characters. It's like I got really lucky that I got into DC when they were like, oh, by the way, here's a bunch of teen characters, young person.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, it's like here's
Mhm.
Tim and here's Bart and here's Connor. I tell this story all the time because I think it really was important in that moment that we had all these new young characters introduced.
Yeah.
And then here's Connor Hawk, and so then I was reading it monthly. At that point, I was just straight up reading it monthly, and I got all the way to 100, and then Ollie dies at 100, and I kept reading it. And the whole time though, I was really liking the Hawk stuff. Like, there's some really awesome stories in there. Like, there's really great stuff. That's where the tournament stuff came from. Like, I, obviously referenced it in Robin because of the
Yeah.
tournament arc over in Green Arrow, and that whole time though, I was a sucker for just like it's weird. I think when we talk about this, and I think it's important for fans and places for them to have ownership of a character. And
Yes.
it's hard to claim ownership of a character when you're dropped into like the middle of a story, right?
Yeah.
Like I think sometimes it's hard to pick up something. It feels like you're reading. It's like anything. It's like if you start watching a TV show at the pilot, no matter how popular that show gets, there's a feeling of like I was here first,
Yeah.
and there's a feeling
Absolutely.
of ownership of it. Then if you start watching something like 3 seasons in, no matter how much you love it, there's always gonna be that disconnect. And you can go back and watch it from the beginning and love it. But I think there is definitely a disconnect between you versus like this other thing. It feels like it's yours, and that's why I
Right.
think sometimes the number ones can be important, is that it does give you that. It gives you that ownership and
That's
stuff
true.
like New 52 and Rebirth. Like I think those things gave people starting points to take ownership and also really start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so for
Here
me with Green Arrow,
yeah.
the one where my first Green Arrow number one is Kevin Smith and Phil Hester.
Ah,
And
that's mine too.
yeah, that was my first book. I was reading it. I remember when they would have that. There was a cover of Green Arrow once where it was like a dude in a cage with long blonde hair and a beard, and I'm like, they're finally bringing it back. And then it was just Warlord.
Uh-huh.
It's like, ah, you got me.
Damn
I know
it.
what you're up to. You got me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then that
Those were
comes and I don't know.
those
Oh,
are
go
like
ahead.
Matt Wagner covers, right?
Or the Matt Wagner? No, that was so Matt Wagner started on Green Arrow #1.
Yeah.
Before that, I don't know who drew that cover. The one where it was
No,
like,
not the fake out cover. I just meant the Phil
oh
Hester
yeah, but
run.
then you get Matt Wagner, you get Phil Hester, and it's just boom. Here is Green Arrow #1. I still have the Green Arrow #1 promotional poster they did. I have it still. It was in the comic shop. We took it down, we folded it, and I still have it. But yeah, I was so like hardcore about Green Arrow, and I remember being at the store and being like, again, like that time period, how old I was. It was like Kevin Smith was the shit. So Kevin just had been doing Daredevil, and I was gonna do Green Arrow. Oh my god!
Yeah.
And then Phil Hester, I had liked Phil Hester when he was on Flash.
Oh, sure.
He did. I mean, mostly he did an annual, but he did the Bloodlines annual with Argus, and he did an
Yes.
Argus mini series. Somebody else was asking me a few days ago. They're like, "What's the one character you feel is like a really little known character that you always will buy something of no matter what?" And I was like, it's funny. I would have said years ago, I would have said Spider-Man 2099, but like now he's blown up and he's gonna continue blowing up. Like the world knows who the character is. But back when I was a kid, like he was so few and far between that when he was in Exiles, even though I was reading Exiles already, I was like, hell yeah, Spider-Man 29's in Exiles, I will buy this. Like
Same.
So Argus was this character was in Bloodlines. I feel like we have comments before. I feel like I'm the only Bloodlines fan in the world.
Yep.
I know way too much about Bloodlines. I know way too much about the different characters introduced in Bloodlines, but Argus, Phil Hester. So he was doing Green Arrow, and I was just like, dude. So that was my day one. Boom, here it is, and I loved it. Like it really did give me. So it's hard sometimes to explain to people. Like probably my favorite Green Arrow stuff is from Kevin Smith on.
Yeah.
But part of that's because I wasn't reading it. It's weird to say secondhand. It's not secondhand. It's weird when you go back and you read like the Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams stuff, and you're like, "This is amazing. This is really good." But it's history at that point,
right? You already knew the context. You weren't like, you didn't go in cold and go, "Holy shit, I think this is important." No, you already knew. You were told it was important already.
Yeah, I always find that really fascinating about our fandom, about things that we're told are important versus discovering things that you are able to live it. Like we were talking about, me and Tom King were talking about Watchmen recently, and we were talking about it, and he was like, when that book was coming out, people knew it was special. Every issue was coming out, the sales were great, reviews were great, people knew it was special as it was coming out.
Yeah.
But it's different for now when people hand to you and they go, "This is one of the most important comics of all time." Like it's such a different experience. And so that's the thing about like some of these books where you're reading these comics that are also like cultural milestones. Because you're talking about Green Arrow and Green Lantern with Denny O'Neil Adams. That is a cultural milestone for comic books.
Yeah.
And so it's a very important book on multiple levels, not just for those characters, but just for comics. And so it's weird when you read that one, it is a little bit like, it's super enjoyable. This is great. But you're going into it with like, again, this is a very important comic book. You know it going into it.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was in line, I think it might have been for Kevin Smith's autograph to get Green Arrow #1 signed. And Bob Schreck, who was the editor, who had come from Oni, who was the editor at the time.
He was the editor on the old Kevin Smith. He was the editor at Oni who edited the Clerks and other Kevin Smith books. So I guess Kev must have brought him in. But
it was the other way around. Like Bob got the job and he brought Kevin in.
Oh, is that how it worked? Because I figured that was just like, because I know that Kevin got the job from Marvel, where it was just like, get the Hollywood guys. Like,
well, that was because of Kevin Smith. I mean, I was Sada and Johnny Palmiotti, but so Bob was walking on the line and he was just asking people Green Arrow questions. And this is when I was pretty young. And he comes up to me and he's like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "I love it. It's so good." And I was like, "Can I pitch you something?" And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Can I pitch you?" And he was like, "Okay, sure.
Yeah.
What do you want to pitch?" And I was like, "All right. So Hard Traveling Heroes technically takes place before Crisis. So we should do a recreation of Hard Traveling Heroes today with like modern stuff." And he looked at me and he's like, "Are you trying to give me a heart attack?" And he's like, "You will kill Denny O'Neil. Why would you do that?" And I was like, no, man. He was like, no, no. Like, what's the next person in line? But the reason why I say this is because, like, dude, I have legit been pitching Green Arrow forever, and like at one point, in the early 2000s, 2000, I'll say late 2000s, I had moments where I was, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it. I'm not sure if it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my buddy about it. And, every creator has like that list of like their bucket list of characters.
Yep.
Like you obviously have priorities and you want to do, but you have that bucket list. And Green Arrow was very high on that bucket list, like easily
Yeah.
top three, of like, I have to write a Green Arrow book. I have to write something with Green Arrow.
Right.
And I started having those moments of like, oh man, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to work at DC. I'm never going to work in comics. And a buddy of mine, who's an artist, he drew me a Green Arrow commission as a gift. But it
Oh,
was Green Arrow with like a twist. It was like Green Arrow kind of based around a story of Green Arrow I wanted to do. And so I kept that. And when I got the job on Green Arrow, uh, I called him, and he had seen enough stuff out there, and I was like, "Yo, dude, now I'm writing Green Arrow. I'm doing that story. Like, I'm doing the story." And
that's awesome.
I'd actually pitched it, dude. I pitched Green Arrow so many times, and at one point, I pitched it to Ben Abernathy back in 2010. Back 2010, might have been later than that. Might have been 12. Um, they were doing like digital first at the time,
Yes.
and he was working on some stuff. There was like a Batman one, there was a Superman one, and a Wonder Woman one. And I went and I was like, oh, let me pitch you a Green Arrow one. I pitched a Green Arrow one, didn't work out. Every time I've been on any project, I've been like, let me get Green Arrow in here somehow. Like when I was
Yeah.
doing Justice League versus Suicide Squad, I tried to get Green Arrow in there, it didn't work out. Tried to get Argus in there too, and that didn't work out either. They were like, why is this character here? I'm like, 'cause I think he's cool. Why not? Like,
Yeah.
do something with him. It's one of my regrets on Flash was I never put Argus in there, but I always felt like he was a Wally character, not a Barry character. So I always tried to be. I was always very careful walking that line
That's
of
so
like
funny
not
because that
making it up.
was oh no, you know what I'm thinking of? I'm not thinking of Bloodlines. I'm thinking there's a moment in War of the Gods when
War of the
Wally
Gods
is in
before,
Oh,
but
I
yeah.
know, I know, but Wally's dealing with the Titans, like the new Titans. And what was the name of it was the female cat themed Titan character. She had like
Oh,
the
maybe
she had the
forget. Not
gold
Pantha.
face.
Yeah, yeah,
Panther. Yeah, it was
it is
Panther.
Pantha. Okay, that is Pantha. All right.
There's a great moment when like the Titans are talking about like what they're gonna do, and then Wally goes, "I'm sorry, Panther, was it? I'm gonna."
People forget that before Mark Wade, Wally was a jerk. Like you
He
go
was a
back,
real jerk, but
he was a
I
jerk
mean,
who won the lottery. Like
yeah,
I always come back around to this dude. There was so much stuff, and then Mark Wade came in, and he was like, "No, no, 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 we're done.
no, Wally's
No, we're
cool.
bringing him back to being
Did
the
you?
kid who was in the Barry Allen fan club, like or the
Yeah,
Flash fan club. Let's rein him back in." But
right.
dude,
Did Tom mention
what's that?
he dropped a flash book in our conversation, which just dropped actually today, again, and he mentioned Flash 54, which is the one where Flash like jumps out the window, jumps out of a plane to save a
Oh yeah.
stewardess he met for like a few seconds. Like he talked to her for a few minutes and then he jumps out the plane. And, like the whole issue is just them plummeting, and it's written by William Esner Loebs.
Yeah, 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 because he was doing it that time period. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a really cool issue, but he mentioned it where he was like, "That's my favorite Wally issue,"
Oh,
and
that's interesting. Not like Zero. Like Zero's really good. There's the one where he uses, I forget what number it is now, but there's the one where he uses the Speed Force formula, and time
yes,
stops and he like has time to walk around. I love that one. Because then he realizes Max Mercury is like spying on him and shit. Like, I love that one. That's one of my favorite ones.
that's awesome.
100 is real good. 100 is really good. Especially the
Yeah.
Mark Waid era. But yes, so I was pitching Green Arrow like a maniac, always, always,
Oh,
always.
sure.
Then I kind of gave up. I was like, this is never gonna happen. And I remember there was somebody at DC when I was pitching for Flash, and I went up to them and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I pitched for a book today," and they were like, "It was a book I really want to do," and they were like, "Oh, so Green Arrow?" And I was like, "No, I didn't pitch for Green Arrow. I pitched for Flash, but I do want to do Green Arrow." It just never worked out. And then me and Ben Percy were like, "Let's do a crossover." Never happened. Like we were just adamantly trying. I was just trying, man, to like, because I really like those characters, and it was like at that point, it was more than just Ollie. It was about Roy. It was about Black Canary. It was about Hawk. And when it's it's funny, like so a few years ago, post Infinite Frontier, I was like, okay, I have one book with Roy in it. I have one book with Hawk in it. I have one
Yeah.
book with Black Canary in it. and no Ollie, no
Yeah.
Ollie. What's funny about this is, and I say this, there was no plan for me to write Green Arrow when this was happening. Like,
Mm.
it was not, and multiple people, multiple creators pitched Green Arrow books, and it just couldn't get
Just hit a
past
wall.
the yeah, it just couldn't get to the finish line. Like, it just couldn't. They couldn't get that touchdown for some reason, and they would get pretty close, and then it would fall apart. Like, for
Hmm.
whatever reason, multiple reasons, wouldn't get approved. And last year, so well, that was not the plan. Like, that was just me trying to do what
To
I
get
felt
Ollie
was
in there.
fixing Green Arrow, right? It was
Yeah.
like, okay, so Black Canary, I put her into to Deathstroke. There was other plans for her, but I wanted to like save her from those plans, and so I was like, okay, so she's in Deathstroke now, and I felt she was going to play an important role in Deathstroke's like battle, because if there's anybody that could be like, this dude's a piece of shit, it's going to be her. So I was like, okay, let's put her in that book, and then let's bring Roy back from the dead. So I was able to do
Hmm.
that with Infinite Frontier, brought him back from the dead, and then I was like, let's get Hawk and Robin, let's get him back on the table. Literally, all of this was with the idea that I was like, if I get all this stuff on the table and all these stories
All the Arrow
here,
family on the table except for
yeah,
Ollie. They'll have to put Ollie in.
they'll have to do something. Somebody will have to do something. Like, that
Yeah.
was sort of where my attitude was. Somebody will have to do something. And then we're in the middle of Dark Crisis, and I was just like, dude, I'm out of room. Like, we had this meeting, and I was like, guys, I'm out of room. Like, I want to do the Green Arrow reunion. I want to have a 2-page spread. Like, I want Ollie to, like, there was supposed to be a scene because Ollie disappears in a 6, and I was like, okay, so the plan is that in 7 he'll come in, arrows blazing hot,
Yep.
and like save the day at one moment, and then the family will be there, and we'll get a cool reunion shot, and then somebody will pick this up.
Yep.
And then I was working on it. I'm like, guys, I'm out of room. Like, issue 7 is like 3 issues worth of material shoved into one comic book. So I'm
Yep.
like, which is always like, it's my only regret with Dark Crisis is I realized that it was like 12 issues worth of material. And the
Yeah.
first 3 issues are paced pretty much how I want them to. Once you get
Uh-huh.
to 5, it was just like shoving everything
We
I could.
gotta fill it all. Yes,
Yeah, we
you can
gotta
feel
wrap it
that
up.
where there's some nice, like, everybody's got some elbow room in the first 3 issues. You're like, yeah, okay, take some time,
That's why
build some
with
character. Yeah.
yeah, now I learned that was one of the biggest things I learned about that was figuring out room a little more. Like, even with
Sure.
Terror, I basically wrote all of Night Terror ahead of time so that I could, like,
Nice.
before anyone started drawing, so I could
You
go,
could
oh,
dial it back
I
or
need to make this add up and put this here, and okay, this is, but make sure I have more room in the ending, so not smash it like I did with
right.
Dark Crisis. But then I was like, guys, I'm out of room. Like, I don't have room anymore. Like, there's 2 things we're gonna have to cut, and one of them was Green Arrow, and I was like, I was bummed. And then I went to them and I was like, all right, here's what we'll do. We'll do a Green Arrow special. We'll do a one shot. And then that one shot will basically wrap it up. I'll just write it like 40 pages. We'll do like a Dark Crisis epilogue.
Love it.
So I started working on that. Me and Toro started talking about it. And then it was like, oh, what if instead we do it in Brave and the Bold? Like,
Hmm.
do a Brave and the Bold story. And I was like, cool. Yeah, let's do it. And it was like, who's writing that? It
They're
was
like
like,
you,
because I think people think
obviously.
they know what my schedule is right now, but my schedule,
Sure.
there's a lot more behind the curtain, like a lot. Um, some of which we'll announce soon. But it was like, I have a lot on my plate, and it was like, but you know what? There's no way I could not do it.
Yeah.
It's like, to be right there and be like, listen, we're gonna do it. And then, because the Brave and the Bold conversation lasted like a week, and then it was like, we're gonna give you a Green Arrow #1. Would you want to do that? And I was like, like, after all this, like, my entire life to get to this moment, there's no way I can say no. No way.
Yeah.
Like, I remember talking about this with my wife, talking about this with other people, and just being like, my schedule is so slammed at this point. So slammed.
Yeah.
Uh, can I fit Green Arrow in? And I'm like, I have to say yes. Like, I will feel like I betrayed myself if I say no.
Yeah.
And by that point, I had already written the first part, and I think people at DC saw what I was doing with it. They were like, "Oh, this is actually really fun. This is really cool." I was actually like,
Mm,
it's an emotional first issue, and it's different. Like, I think it'll go in directions people will be surprised by.
nice.
Uh, and you know, I knew there was no way I could not do it. And
Yeah.
then it came together really fast after that. And then me and Ben, we were at a bar. You'd be surprised how many comics are planned out in bars. You
I
might not
would
be
not
surprised.
now
Yeah,
that
gonna be a surprise at all. so much as a surprise. I mean, that's one thing that we'll talk about that in a second. But when I was working on when Ben and I were in a bar, and Ben was like, well, "Who's gonna draw it?" And we started throwing names around. He's like, "There's this artist. His name is Sean, and he had worked on Fantastic Four with Dan Slott." And I was like, "Oh yeah, the guy does that." She did a two-parter where it was the Thing versus the Hulk, and I love it. Like I love those two issues. And
Yeah.
he had just worked on Thunderbolts. He did the True Story Fantastic Four stuff. Like he'd been working on these projects at Marvel, and I was like, "Yeah, I follow him. Like I know him, and I know his work." And so I was like, I think he'd be good for this. Let's try. Let's try. On my gut, I feel like he can do it. And so Ben emailed him while we're at the bar. Literally emails him just sitting there, and he's like,
Nice.
"Hey, would you be interested in working on Green Arrow?" Puts his phone down. We have a drink. We're going for round two, and he's like, "Oh man, he already emailed me back." And he was like, the guy is like, "Are you joking with me? That's my dream job." He was like, "That is my dream comic book." And he was like, "Ben, you may not remember this. He lives in South Africa."
Oh,
Ben years ago went to South Africa for a convention. This is like maybe four years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and did portfolio reviews. And that guy was there, and he literally was like, "I want to draw Green Arrow. I want to draw Black." And so the guy was like, "Yeah, let's get started." And so we talked a little bit. We did a couple Zooms. I gave him the script, and that dude was like, boom,
love
just
it.
signs. He loves Roy. He loves Hawk. Like he knows it. It's really great when you're working with an artist and you can be like, "Oh, I mean, like in this issue." And he's like, "I know that issue. I would do that." Like he's like, "I know exactly what you're talking about." I
Yeah,
don't have to like go through and be like, "Oh, you got to go read all these Green Arrow issues before we start working on this." He's like, "I've already read
sure.
them." He was telling me his favorite Roy stories, and he was like, "I already know about this. I already know about that. We got to do this. We got to do that. We do this." And I was like, "Dude, we'll do all of it. We'll figure it all out." You know,
Nice.
so you have like two fans working on the book, and
That's great.
we only what's that?
That's great. No, that's like
Oh
I'm sure that despite the fact that like there has been so much hype about like there's that beautiful all green teaser cover image. There
yeah,
is the promo piece that like embarrassed me and Benny because we couldn't name half the characters. And but I'm sure people are hyped, but to know that like both like the creative team
yeah.
loves this character, loves this universe, knows these people, and wants to play in that world. I mean, like that's probably what this whole tribute cover wraparound is all about, where it's like
Wrap around, yeah.
this is his universe, this is what we know, and this is what we're gonna play with.
Yeah, well, we wanted to, and there's a couple teases in there, and there's a couple
Oh
things
yeah,
that are out of place, but it's on purpose. We wanted
exactly.
to. You always want people to like question and ask questions.
Yeah. Remember when they used to do that? Remember that like that Infinite Crisis teaser
Oh,
poster that
brother,
Bill Jimenez did?
yes, it
Like,
comes up all the time.
oh, does it like where people are like, we should do that? And I'm sure it's like, yeah, that costs a lot of money, and it's not like a thing we can really merchandise. Like,
No, we've talked about it. There's one of the people that works at DC marketing. He actually worked on those, and so
no
he and I,
kidding.
it comes up,
Because
and
that's something I would like to see more of, is like just
yeah, me
original
too.
art for promotion. Like I was looking through old Wizards, and I was like, not even obviously those are the apples and oranges, where it's like it's just a teaser image, like Armor Wars, and it's just a picture of like
Well, look
a
at what Chip
cool.
did this week, where he's been doing the different Daredevil ones that are just like this
Yes,
progression, like that stuff. Oh yeah, dude, when I see that stuff, it definitely comes up, and we have more that are
exciting.
coming. There are definitely some promo stuff that's coming that was built that's art that was built for promos that are coming.
Nice.
But we definitely talk about that a lot, and that's one of the things. It's part of why I push for the wraparounds, because
Yeah,
wraparounds can be also used as marketing material. Like it's the right size poster. It
totally.
fits on social. It like has all the roles, and you can have room for copy and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
But and also I think it's a nice package when you do wraparound covers, and so it's like, yeah, with Green Arrow, we just put a lot into it, and we only got 6 issues to start. That was part of the deal, and so our hope is that the numbers come in on issue one that are strong enough that we can then say, okay, we get a second arc, or it becomes an
Yeah.
on. Kind of
Well,
what
you know
happened.
what Dennis was saying about Doom Patrol. His byline is just pre-order the series. It's 6 issues, so it's not a
Yeah,
big deal it's
yeah,
not a
go
big
in and
commitment.
pre-order it. Yeah,
But just when you tell the comic store, just pre-order the 6 issues, because Green Arrow's gonna be a 6 issue run. Just tell them I want the 6 issues. Like pre-order Green Arrow,
yeah,
because
yeah,
that will tell the people. Oh, I want more Green Arrow. Is it sad that we live in a world where we can only get 6 issues of Green Arrow at a time? Yes. Is it?
yeah. Oh, dude, it's
Can
crazy, but
but like, but it's funny. Like miracles still exist. Poison Ivy is an ongoing series.
I know. Yeah, yeah,
Amazing Mary Jane was not supposed to be 12 issues. There are books out there that
yeah,
like they had no plan for, and here they and they continued. You got more. You got Spider Girl's a character who should, by all
Oh,
means,
got over 100, right? Or it got too up.
like
This just came up.
Shoshin.
I was talking about this with
Oh,
one of the
really?
editors in that book. Yeah, we were talking about Spider Girl and how it went, and like, yeah, we were talking about the tricks you play to get,
Yeah.
like to get things going. But I'm hopeful. I mean, you and I had this conversation before. We've talked about it a lot where it's like, I'm really glad people on the internet are very pumped and excited, but it's like sometimes that doesn't translate into sales. And
No.
it's like with this one, I do feel like it's a test in some ways, right? Like we've
Big
been
time.
tested. Like we see the sales on some books, and you can tell people are excited. And that's why those pre-orders are important because a lot of times retailers have a lot of books and a lot going on.
Yeah.
Like a lot of stuff to pay attention to, a lot of stuff coming their way. They're opening up their boxes every week, and there's a countless books, and there's so many books right now. And
Yeah.
I feel like the noise of comics has become so even right now. It's just it's a
Mhm.
very
A
loud
dull
yell, but
roar.
everyone's yelling at the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when you walk into a casino.
Yeah.
You walk into a casino and it's that sound. It's like ding 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 ding. Like that is comics, where it's like you walk in, or walk into like if you ever go to Comic Con, you walk into the Hyatt lobby and you
Yeah.
walk in and it's that roar, people talking about comics. It's
Yep.
just like,
Yep. Yep.
oh my god. And I feel like, and it's like you have to yell at somebody like right next to you. And everyone's like, let's get the fuck out of here, let's go someplace else. But
Yeah.
so with that, like you're constantly having to like find ways of being louder than
You gotta
everything
cut
else. That's
through it.
so
Yeah.
challenging, and with a book like Green Arrow, and I think, it's always really exciting to see people be really pumped on either online or at conventions. Like I think that's what we were talking before about like the importance of conventions and face to face. You get a lot from that. But
Yeah.
for retailers, from their perspective, the number one thing is the pre-orders. Like people coming into the store saying, "I like this, I want to order this," is the number one. I mean, there are some shops that only order off of their pre-orders. They don't,
Yeah.
that's it. And so it's like with these things, that's usually the way to go. I mean, you and I had this discussion before, where it's like there are times where there are books that people online will be like, "This is the worst comic," and its sales are like way up here, and they'll be like, "This is the best comic," and its sales are down here. And that's not to say
Uh-huh.
I don't think the sales are indicative of actual quality of the books. What's
No.
struggling is that good books are having a hard time finding a footing in the marketplace, and that's
Yeah.
really challenging, and it can be frustrating at times, when you're like, we
Yeah.
made a good book, what happened? But it's the same with everything, movies, TV shows, everything has this problem, I guess, this challenge,
Absolutely.
hurdle. That's why the pre-orders are so important. Like
Yeah.
it's such a challenge right now, because it's like I don't have to go into the comic book store and talk about it, is
Right.
really it, or contact your retailer and say, I like this. That makes them pay attention. Like you were saying, it's like what Dennis was saying about the 6 issues. Just realistically, if the shop hears it that you are interested and people are interested, it makes them say, oh, maybe I should order more. And that
Yeah.
translates across, and that tells DC, and not just DC, this is true of all the publishers. When those numbers come in, it tells people they're really interested in.
That's true.
Like it's the bottom line, because it's like that's the one thing you can quantify. You can put a dollar symbol next to it, and it's
Yeah.
like, for them, it's like this is what people actually care about,
Right.
and it's hard sometimes because it's, I don't know, it could be a real challenge when you start looking at stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's the thing that tells people this is what you want, because you're
Exactly.
buying. I mean, that's
Yeah,
it.
that's the only
Like,
way they can quantify it. Otherwise, they're just going by gut reaction, word of mouth, and you can't set your watch to that, and you can't pay your mortgage with that. Like, you gotta like,
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a real signal. That's it. Like you really take a step back and you look at stuff and you go, what do people actually care about? It's the stuff that you're willing to put money for. Like I know
yeah.
that's difficult at times. Our industry is so funny because people don't always want to talk about this stuff. They don't want to talk about sales. They don't want to talk about the money side of things. But it's
Well,
like it's
they're
still an
selective
important
about it.
part.
They will talk about it selectively. They will use it to
Yeah,
justify points that are not related. They'll be like, "Oh my god, like this thing is really important, or this thing's really like exciting, or this is the most important thing ever. Look at the sales, or this book is invalid because look at the sales." But they also don't understand like how the sales figures work, and that is in part because the industry is very close to the chest about those figures in the first place.
the real
So no one
numbers.
has
Yeah,
anything to
the real
talk
numbers.
about. Like nobody, people think they know, and then you got the people who are like, well, based on the sales of one comic book store, I can tell you definitively about how a character is going to be like
Oh
progressing.
yeah, I remember working at, even before I worked at different shops over
Yeah,
different life, and it was like Wizard. So Wizard used to call stores and ask what was selling.
right.
And part of why they did that was because one, it gave an idea what was actually hot in the stores. Like they weren't just making it up.
Right.
They were calling stores. And I remember talking to one store and they were like breaking it down, like, what's your highest DC book? What's your highest Marvel book? What's your highest this, this, this? And they were like, and this also dates me and tells you when I was working at a comic book store, but they were like, what cross-gen book are you selling? And I was like, Scion. Like Scion is the one that we sell the most of. And
Yeah,
they're really
not
not.
Ruse.
Not Rude, well, not Sojourn.
Yeah,
Like, there were specific ones, they were like, "What about Mystic?" And I was like, "No, Scion."
yeah,
And they were like, "Why is it Scion?" And I was like, "The honest answer, because I like Scion, and I'm
right.
selling it." So, because I like that book, I'm hand selling it, and that means that our numbers on that book are higher than the rest. Like, that's
Yeah,
just how it is. So every shop is different. If you have one store, there are stores that are very DC stores. You can tell like they're fans of DC, so they push it. There are Marvel stores. There are stores that are Image stores, more indie, and you can tell. You walk in, and you're like, I know what this is gonna be like. You're not gonna care about me,
big
like you
time.
you want to sell. I'm not gonna name any books, but like very independent books, like that's your priority, and that's
Uh-huh.
okay. Like those stores are awesome. It's just interesting. It does create this math of like you can't always gauge by one, but once you add it all together and you look at it, it's like, oh, this is what people actually want. I mean, I remember years ago seeing this comment was the Batman Who Laughs, and somebody was like, "Oh, the Batman Who Laughs. Nobody wants the Batman Who Laughs." And I was like, dude, a lot of people want the Batman Who Laughs. Go to a convention and see how many people are cosplaying Batman Who Laughs. There's a reason why he's in. There's toys of him and merchandise of him because, boy, let me tell you, like, there's a reason why they put him in games and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
the dude is super popular. And at the end of the day, when you sit back and you go, what do people actually care about? And you see that number and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, people clearly cared about this character. And that's true of a lot of stuff. The hard thing though is when something fails and the sales just aren't there and you're just like, what happened? This was
Yeah.
good. We know it's good. They know it's good. What happened? And that stuff gets really challenging. But that's why with Green Arrow, I'm trying to get out there and just be like, pure this book because it's like, if you are a Green Arrow fan, uh, like, and you're saying you want this book, I'm telling you, like, I'm also a Green Arrow fan, and the way I'm starting it off is very much like, I don't know, it's the book I wanted.
Right.
It's the Green Arrow book that I wanted for the last like 15 years, and it's like, I think a lot of people who've worked on Green Arrow, especially the Rebirth era of Green Arrow, there was a piece that was missing, and this comes up in the first issue, and I think when you go back and look, it's like New 52 Green Arrow, he wasn't really allowed to be around Black Canary and he wasn't allowed to be his family, but they introduced new characters to kind of supplement that.
Yes.
Same thing with, I think you get close to it because obviously Rebirth, like he and
Yeah.
Black Canary are back together and they were able to bring in more characters. Like there was a Miko and they were able to bring them in. So for me, it was like I always do with continuity. It's like I'm not throwing anything away. Like
Yeah.
I'm like getting all of it, all the pieces from New 52, all the new pieces from Rebirth, but I'm also bringing all the stuff from pre-Rebirth and bringing that in, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's why the book's subtitle is Reunion. You know,
Right.
it's like it's about that, and I'm hoping that people. It's weird. This is my only warning about the book. I say this after everything I've said. Superman was built to be super accessible. You could have not read a Superman comic in 10 years. You've never read a Superman comic book. I think you would understand what's going on, right?
Totally.
Green Arrow, I built it so that if you haven't read Green Arrow ever, you pretty much have the pieces you need for Green Arrow. However, this is very much written for Green Arrow fans. Like it is very much like, listen, I'm there too. There are certain things we got to do. Let's do them. And so it's like there are things that are built in for that. But it is like I think when it comes to some of the sales stuff, you and I talked before about like the importance of talking to comic book stores, but also going to conventions. Like I
Oh,
think
yeah.
when I go to conventions now, I'm trying to do a better job of reaching out to the retailers that are there, just they're there as vendors, and just talk to them more because I feel like during the pandemic there was a lot less face to face time, and I think that's part of where the challenges are coming from is because it's like we had a lot less face time not only with retailers but with readers.
Yeah.
Like it's been really great to go to conventions again, have people come to you and actually talk about the books with you, and you get a better gauge, I think, than anything else. Of like when I did Comics Pro, I had 3 signings. I had one at one shop, and I had a retailer only signing where I was literally just signing for other retailers,
Oh,
and then I had one that was in a shop, and all of them were such different experiences, but really the excitement about comics, and people want to be excited about the books and they want to talk about it, but they also want to talk about it in person.
right.
That they really want to like have those conversations, and it's like me as a person who came up in comic stores and being able to stand in the comic shop and actually just talk about it, like that's what I think has been missing in a little bit. And so it's been interesting lately seeing that, and I'm hoping that we're giving people something to talk about too. Either you love or hate it, you're talking about it.
Right? No,
That's
it's
always the
true.
goal, is get it out there. Just talk
That's
about
so
it.
important because you're competing. Everything has the same frequency. Like every single piece of media is at these. It's democratized to the point where it's like your comic book is competing with a multi-billion-dollar movie, is competing with a just recently recorded in a garage podcast. Like it's all the same noise and it's all at the same frequency. And so like
Yeah.
you could watch like a show that cost like $300 million to produce and then go, all right, well, I watched that, and that's just out of your head for the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you're
I mean, I'm
talking
behind
about
on most of my TV. Like I haven't watched. This is like this weird example, I guess, of those things. I'm gonna go on a weird tangent that may not be
yeah,
related. I haven't watched the new Lord of the Rings show. I haven't
oh, me
watched
either.
the new Game of Thrones show. I haven't watched any of that stuff, and I want to watch them. But the thing that I'm mostly excited about is like Ted Lasso. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, and I think that that's something. It's a newer thing too that I can take ownership of. Right? Those other
Yes.
things, weird. It's like nobody's coming into. It would be weird. I guess it's the same problem with Star Wars, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
if you're talking to somebody, you're like, "What was the very first Star Wars thing you ever saw?" And they're like, "Phantom Menace." And you're like, "Wow, really?" Like, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if they're like, I'm wearing, and they're like full on geared out in a convention Star Wars gear, like I love Star Wars. And you're like, you came in this from such a different angle. I have so many questions. Like,
Completely.
and it's the same thing with that stuff. But it's like with Ted Lasso, again, I came into it like maybe an episode or two in,
Mhm.
so I was that late into it, but I can own Ted Lasso. And I'm very excited
Yeah.
about Ted Lasso. But it's like this lower budget. I mean, I imagine it's a lower budget. Who knows? I imagine it's lower budget compared to these other shows that are
Yeah.
like crazy, huge, expensive shows.
Oh, yeah. No, I went yeah, the fate of the whole realm is up for grabs by the Dark
Mhm.
Lord of whatever. It cost $1 trillion to produce. Or, just this show based off a commercial.
But I
Got a
still have a
couple of guys.
commercial. Yeah, it's so funny. I love those commercials too. Completely different character.
Yeah.
Like he's not the same Ted Lasso in those commercials. He's a bit more of a
No.
jerk in that one, and then in this
Uh-huh.
one he's more of a genuine like. And the stakes of that show are basically, I want us to get along.
Yeah.
Like it is about winning, but really, it's about them getting along.
Yes.
Like it's so funny how sports shows are like that, because like Rocky, the first Rocky's not about winning; it's about going the distance.
That's
And with
right.
this one, it wasn't about winning. Ted Lasso's not about winning; it's about building a family.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating thing because like he lost his family, so he's a new family. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm much more of a fan of that in anything I do, where it's much more about like the emotional pieces of things. I'm not,
Mhm.
when it comes to writing, I'm less interested a lot of times in like. And it's funny I say this, somebody wrote Dark Crisis. So, like I wrote a crisis, so big explosions, big multiverse stuff. That's just all fun, but at the end of the day, like I'm much more of like I try to be a much more emotional writer. Like I'm not trying to like blow you away with giant ideas. I want emotions.
Yeah.
You know, I like characters talking. It
Yeah.
sounds silly, but it's like, it's like one of my favorite scenes in Robin. It was great. Like Gleb drew a bunch of like awesome action sequences in there, but some of my favorite parts are just like to bring it back to Green Arrow is just Damian and Connor Hawk sitting on a cliff talking about their dads. Like
Oh,
that's the
yes.
stuff that I'm like. That's the stuff I'm interested. That's the stuff where I kind of head toward,
Yeah.
and that's it with Green Arrow. And I have to be careful. I almost blow books I'm working on. I'm gonna announce. I'm always like, well, this thing happened in this book. I think people won't be surprised necessarily by what I'm working on next. But same thing with Superman, where it's like sometimes my favorite parts of Superman are Superman and Lex
Oh, just
talking, or
talking.
Superman and Lois. Yeah, there's a scene in issue 3 of Superman where Superman and Lois are dancing, and
Oh,
they're floating while they're dancing, and it just looks really cool. And Jamal did it, and there's a window behind him, the sun's coming through, and it's just that's the stuff where I'm like, dude, Jamal, you did it, buddy. Like, and there's also
that's
all cool like action sequences and Superman doing cool stuff, but
oh,
it's like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that
that's the
first issue of
moment.
Superman just dropped a couple weeks ago and, or a month ago now.
A month ago, yeah. When this comes out, it'll be a minimum month. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and,
yeah.
just that last sequence where he's getting, like, all the parasites, and I'm like, great
Oh yeah.
horror stuff, like, good, like,
Mhm,
really
mhm.
fun action, but also just really tender, like, sweet, amazing. I mean, that dude can balance it all, but that's what you look
Oh
for
man,
for Superman, where it's, like, the
yeah,
fun balance of who he is as a person and also, like, the superheroics.
yeah. You always want that. I mean, it's like you want. Oh, it's fascinating. We talk about this, like where people love watching superheroes eat.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. People love watching superheroes eat. Boy, let me tell you.
That's
uh,
funny. Well, like I
like
guarantee you, like 75% of the MCU fans, their favorite scene. If you were like, "What's your favorite scene from the
the
MCU?"
shawarma.
Oh, I was gonna say not the
What were you
shawarma
gonna say?
scene. Oh, their least favorite Avengers movie of Age of Ultron.
Oh, is them
The
hanging out? Is them
the
hanging
worthy
out?
scene. Yeah, the hanging out
Yeah.
scene.
Oh no, dude. Listen, like that's the best part of that movie. Like,
It
I
is.
mean,
It is.
it's the part that I remember most. There are times I forget I've seen that movie. Like, there are times where I have conversations. It's not. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm just gonna say that's the best part of that movie.
That's fair. Yeah. Well,
Part.
I'll go out on a limb and be like, TikTok will push me like a scene, and I'll go, "Holy shit! Look at Iron Man and Thor. Oh, it's Age of Ultron. Right? Yeah.
Dude,
Like I
I
don't
want to
remember anything.
there are days where I'm like, I want to do a rewatch, but then I'm like, I'm such again, I'm a continuity junkie. It's so hard for me to be like, I'm gonna pick this one random Marvel movie out and start
Yeah.
watching. It's like, no, I gotta start with Iron Man. I gotta do the whole thing. I did in the summer I watched Ant-Man 1, Ant-Man 2, and then I watched a little bit of Civil War, just the Ant-Man scenes,
Yep.
and then I watched a little bit of Endgame, just the Ant-Man scenes, just because I was like in an Ant-Man mood for some reason, and
Ant
just
Man's
watched.
the one you can do that with easily, where it's like, "Oh, let's watch
Yeah,
some Ant Man," and you're like, "Oh, yep, that fits."
yeah, and it fit the whole thing. But
Yeah.
what was I gonna tell you? It was before we started going down this path about Marvel movies and all. Oh,
Oh, about superheroes
people
eating and
eating.
stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you're right, dude. Like people really gravitate toward that. I mean, that's the things that people kind of remember every once in a while, and they want the human moments out of the superhero,
Yes.
and I think they want those human emotions. Like you can have these giant. We talked before about like the stage plays. It's like
Yes.
you can have the craziest set imaginable, right? This gigantic CG thing, but if the emotions aren't real, if you're not getting actual like connections between these characters, it doesn't matter what's behind them. It
Nope.
could be nothing behind them if that isn't connecting. Like in the first Hulk movie, the Ang Lee one, and a lot of people have different opinions about that one.
Yeah.
But there is a part where it's Nick Nolte and I'm forgetting his name right now, who played the Bruce Banner,
Eric
but
Bana.
it was Eric Bana. Thank you. I knew it was like in there, but I'm gonna say somebody else. I'm gonna
It's
say like
weird because
Carl
he
Urban.
has a name that sounds like if you said it like you saying Bruce Banner fast. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a scene where the two of them are out in the desert and they get strapped to these machines and they're yelling at
oh
each other.
god, that scene, yeah.
Dude, it's the best part of the movie.
It's
That
so
is like
incredible. Watch
acting.
me go. Yeah, watch these
Yeah,
two and literally just they're sitting in this there's no
yeah.
sense.
It might as well be a stage. Yeah, and they
It is.
show them and they're yelling with each other and arguing. But also,
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like overacting. I know we've talked before. Like I love overacting. You get William Shatner in there, and
Ooh,
that dude is just overacting, and I'm like, yes, dude, give it all. I want it.
yeah.
I want all the overacting. You get to like Star Trek 6,
Oh,
and all
yeah.
these like theater dudes are dressed as Klingons.
They're
They got
great.
William Shatner, and it's one of the best. But that's it though. Like Star Trek 6 is a great movie. One of the best parts of that movie is the Klingons and the Federation sitting down with Romulan
Oh,
and Al and talking it out. And you
yep.
remember that, like some amazing lines come through that
Yeah.
scene. That's a scene where you're sitting there just like, oh, dude, it's so good. Acting,
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah.
And it's
Acting.
like that's the stuff you're looking for. And that part in the Hulk movie where the two of them are yelling at each other and it's just
Yeah.
like acting. Like and I love when they're like, I'm gonna overact and I'm gonna outact you,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like I'm gonna you think you're gonna choose some scenery, I'm gonna choose some scenery. And then you start getting like, just really and part of that comes from theater where it's like they have to enunciate at a certain point and then make sure the cheap seats hear them and see them. All this
Yes.
stuff is all tied together. And so I love that. And so you take that into comics, like, I remember somebody was giving me crap about I had a lot of yelling in Flash. I'm like, acting, acting. Like you get Barry and Thawne in a room.
Oh,
At
yeah.
some point somebody's gonna yell.
Yeah, they're both gonna start yelling at some point. Like, they
Yeah.
gotta. Yeah.
Well, it's Batman and the Joker too. You get Batman and Joker. I mean, this is what I'm talking about though. Like, I think it's one of the things that's always fun is that like if you get Batman and the Joker in a room, it's an interrogation room, the Batcave, a rooftop, sparks are gonna fly,
You're gonna
right?
get a good
And
scene. Yeah.
you're gonna get a good
You're gonna have a
scene.
memorable scene. That's right.
There's that scene in Scott's Batman where
Oh.
they're at it's not waterfalls, I think, right? Or it's
It's when they're
water
under the
fountains.
they're at the is that the cave? Oh, I'm sorry. When they're
They're at
is that
like
when they're both
it's
amnesiacs?
no, this is early on where they're on the it's one of the first times that Batman meets the Joker in Scott's run, but they're on like a bridge or
Yes.
something,
Yes.
and there's water in the background, a lot of silhouettes, and that's one of the best parts of that. Like, not just that run, but
No.
that storyline with the death of the family stuff. Like, it was just really good, just the two of them. And yeah, there's a cool set piece behind them.
Yeah.
Water for whatever reason is always fun, like rain, all that stuff. It's always. But same thing with Superman and Lex. You get Superman and Lex, we put them in there.
Yeah.
Um, there's certain characters if you get them in a room together that it's going to be interesting. And uh, it's Wonder Woman and Cheetah, like get them in
Yeah.
a room, or that to always be villains too. It's like if Wonder Woman is in a room with her mother, with Hippolyta, there's gonna be something there. Or back in the day, Bruce and Alfred. It's like
Yeah.
you can bounce them off each other. It doesn't matter where they're at. You can get crazy with those sets, but I think that's it. And that's the thing with working on Night Terror. I try to find places for that where it's like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman together, or Dead Man involved, Dead Man's point of view, and then you have the villain
Yeah.
involved. And then with Green Arrow, it's like that once you get Ollie and Black Canary in a room, they're gonna play off each other. What's been really interesting about Green Arrow, this is a bit of a spoiler, is that like Green Arrow's rogues gallery, I think is cool, but he doesn't have a Joker.
Right.
I'm curious if somebody out there is like, yes, he does. It's this person. But for me, it's like I know who I think his villains are. But
Mm.
then it's about like establishing them as his villains, but also villains that have done something to him that you're like, oh, that's bad. That is his arch enemy.
Yeah.
And so that's been also a part of working on Green Arrow's been about is like it's a lot of hero stuff. Like obviously it's a lot with Ollie and then the rest of the family. Because the rest of the family's trying to find Ollie and there's shenanigans going on. But it was also about grabbing a couple of the villains and being like, let's firmly establish them as like right now as Green
Yeah.
Arrow, and then build them up and do fun, scary stuff with them. And then the
Yeah.
hope is we get that extension, and I
Oh
already know
yeah.
what that extension is all going to be about. So it's like,
It's already planned out. So hey, listen,
yeah,
could be
get the
12.
reunion, and then we get into this whole other problem that's on the plate
Love it.
that we have to take care of.
Yeah.
But
With
I'm
Ollie,
hoping.
with
Good.
Ollie and Dinah, if you put them in a room together, the fun thing about those two characters for me is you never know if it's going to go wrong. I like every
If
time you
he's
see
gonna
them
say something,
together,
put his foot in his mouth.
he's
Yeah,
gonna screw up. Like yeah, and when
every
it doesn't,
time,
like you
every
expect
time.
it to happen, and every time when it doesn't happen, it's like a little success. It's like a victory
It
where you're
is,
like,
yeah, because
oh
he
my
will
god,
put
he
his foot in
didn't
his
screw it
mouth.
up.
Yeah, he's so interesting with me with that because it's like he is 100% the character that like he's truth to power, you know, but he definitely puts his foot in his mouth all the
Well,
time.
like,
Like,
truth to power, and he still has to go home, and when you go home and you have that level, because I'm that way too, like, where I, like, say I talk a big game, and then I come home, and my wife is like, "You're not talking to the internet right now."
oh yeah,
Like, "You're not talking about comic books right now, you're talking to your wife," and I'm like, "I'm an idiot." Like
yeah. Oh my god, it's so funny. I've never run into that. I don't think. I try to turn it off by the time I leave this room.
Well, I don't know. This is me. This is the frustrating thing is this is me all the time. So I'm like,
Yeah, I know. I get
I'll
it.
be like, oh,
Yeah,
here's a big example, and it's like that's not relevant or important or productive at this
well, I mean,
moment.
I'm just as rambly as I am now everywhere, though.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
tell a story, like, they'll have a million tangents,
Same.
I'm like, "Oh, you wanna talk about this? I got a story for that." Like, let's
Yeah. And
where's our
they're like, I have to go home. I don't have
Yeah.
time to talk about this right now. I have to go to the bank today. But yeah,
Yeah, which, as you know, that is what I'm
yeah.
doing. But, yeah, it's like,
Okay.
that's really funny, like, just
Yeah.
having to turn it off and stuff, but,
Yeah, it's tough.
yeah, I
But
mean.
Holly can't, and I love that. That's a humanizing character trait for
Oh,
you.
yeah, and then, what was I gonna tell you something about Green Arrow? You reminded me of something I wanted to tell you about Green Arrow, and now I don't remember what it was now.
Oh.
Oh, but I also like
Oh.
Judd Winnick stuff.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
all the Judd Winnick stuff, I was really a fan of it, there's a lot of cool stuff that got introduced in that. But, yeah, that's definitely my Green Arrow, is that era, of more than anything else, because I have ownership of it. Like, you
Yeah.
can recognize it's weird, like we were saying before. It's like, if I say to you, my favorite Green Arrow comic of all time is Hard Traveling Heroes. Sure, but I was told that was important.
I already
Yeah.
knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was told this is good. So for me to have the first time where I felt like this is mine is the Kevin Smith run that eventually led to Brad Meltzer, which those issues are really good. One of my
Yeah.
favorite Arrows ever, or Green Arrow issues ever, is one of Brad Meltzer ones. It's like it's that arc that he did where it was Ollie and Roy and they fought Solomon Grundy in the old Arrow cave, like all that stuff is just really great. And then you get to Judd Winnick. Judd Winnick introduced a lot of stuff that was really cool. So that is definitely an era.
Yeah.
And then later on they did the Bat. I mean, I remember reading the Black Canary Green Arrow issue when it was the wedding issue, and the twist at the ending was that Ollie was going to die. Spoilers for anybody that hasn't read that. It was a genuinely shocking moment. I remember reading it in
Yeah.
the comic store and being like, "Oh my god, they got me." I did not. And I'm usually the kind of person that can like figure stuff out when it's coming. That one I was like, "Oh shit, this is how they're going to get around this."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I have a lot of Green Arrow books that I really love, and I'm just hoping people will buy this one,
Yeah.
talk
Well, I
about
hope
it,
so.
and
People are talking
buy
about it.
it.
Yeah. Well, keep the conversation going because that's what keeps these books alive
Yeah,
and
I
gets
have a whole
people
plan. I'm
excited
gonna really
about
try
them.
to market this harder than I marketed things in a while. Like, I mean, with Superman it was a little different, but I think with this one, I'm really gonna try to get out there a little harder. And it's tough because, as you know, like marketing in comics is a full time job. And
Yeah.
it's, I remember talking to Dennis about this when he was marketing. He was out there really pushing Doom Patrol, and he
Hmm.
was like, "I did not work that week. Like, all I did
Yeah.
was that for an entire week." And I'm like, "Dude, I need to do that, but I also have so many scripts to write,
Exactly.
so many comic books to write. You have no
Yeah.
idea. It's a
That's
lot
the
writing.
thing.
A lot."
Not everybody's built for it. Not everybody is Stan Lee. Not everybody can be Stan.
Oh,
Where it's
dude,
like,
no. I was talking about this with Scott the other day. Like, Scott and I were talking a few days ago. Was it a few days ago? It might have been last Friday. I don't remember what day it was.
yeah,
He and I were talking, and we were talking about this. Like, Scott is really, really great at being like a PT Barnum, like really getting
yes,
out there and talking about stuff. He is great at it. It has never been the thing that I actually like in, like you and I talk about comics. We can do this all day
yep,
because we do this all day. But
yeah.
like to get up on stage and be the like, I've
Ladies and
never been
gentlemen,
that.
this is gonna be really exciting, and here's why. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough.
Scott's great at that, and he really means it. He's not faking it. Like, he's
Yeah,
genuinely really pumped, and he really wants to get out there, and he really wants to talk about that stuff. I like talking about it, and I do like. I'm also pumped about the books. I will just never be that person, so it's definitely a challenge for me whenever we do that kind of stuff because I'm always like, I much more just want to sit in my little office and write comic books,
yeah,
you know. And I like talking about books. I love talking about comics. That's why I like the convention stuff. I like doing stuff like this.
yeah.
But that level of the showman part of it, I've never been as
Hmm.
much of it is not my strong suit, I guess I should say.
I think
But it has to be done. That's the
it
thing.
has
It
to be
has to
done.
be done. It has
Yeah,
to be done. Like it's probably the thing that I always get the most stressed out about, but it has to get done, otherwise these books, you
they're
gotta get
just.
the word out.
That's right. That's right. You're competing with literally everything, and you're competing with
Literally
multi-million dollar.
everything. 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 So
Yeah,
many comic books, so many movies, TV shows. We're just competing with everything all the time.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
another
all
month,
right. On that
another
note,
episode of All Stars, folks. Check out Green Arrow and Night Terrors, but also thanks for checking out this episode of All Stars. Hey, listen, this is another
yes.
thing. This is a product we were hawking ourselves, just the
Yeah,
show.
yeah. And actually, we should say this. If anyone has anything they want us to talk about, is this okay with you? You just,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
put it in
No,
the
throw them,
comments.
please.
Yeah, yeah. Let us know because we can try.
Yeah,
You
I
want
like that
to talk about
idea.
Hookmore? We can talk about Hookmore.
Oh yeah,
You
we'll
want
do a
to talk
hook
about another
episode.
Steven Spielberg movie? We can do that. We can talk about whatever.
Yeah,
The next one,
we
I won't have as much to promote on the next one, so we can
no,
just
that's
talk
true.
about
So we can
movies
really go
and
off.
video games and stuff or something.
Oh shit. Oh man, we haven't even touched that topic.
We
So
haven't touched
let us
video
know in the
games. Oh
comments.
man, yeah, we can get into video games. Let's do that next time. All right, so next time we're gonna talk about video
Oh
games, and
no.
we can go
Oh
down
man. I don't know that.
Well, okay, let's ask you this one last. I'll ask you a question to end this. Okay,
Yeah.
what is your favorite video game of all time?
Oh my god.
Oh, dude, it's not that hard.
No, it is. It is because that's a loaded effing question, my
I
friend.
know it is. See, I have a cheat because there's games I love, but I have
Yeah.
a cheat. There's one that I'm just
Okay.
like, listen, that's the one that I hear the music in my head for the rest of
Is
my
it
life.
GoldenEye?
No, no, no. GoldenEye is great though. I haven't played it yet on the new
Oh, it's good.
on the Switch. I haven't played it yet. I have all
It's
kinds
good.
of really fun GoldenEye stories we could talk about because
Same.
I was in college right after GoldenEye came out, boy. So let me tell you, a lot
Nice.
of hours playing GoldenEye. But I'll tell you what mine is. So
Yeah.
there's one game that I hear the music forever. I will whistle it sometimes. I just know it. I see it in my head. I have had dreams about it. I play it every few years just to beat it all over again. I was actually playing with my daughter recently, and that is Link to the Past.
Oh
Like
yeah.
without a shadow of a doubt, Link to the Past. I mean, that's just the game that like I remember playing it so much when it first came out, and I have like all these different memories of that summer and the stuff that
Yeah.
came out with it, and it's the one I have like weird stories to tell you about with that game, but it is the one that if I actually sat down and I had to build a list, some of that is emotional connection, nostalgia connection to it. Is obviously
Yeah.
once you start playing around with the childhood stuff, dude, it's like it's an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But I would say Link to the Past is it. Do you think GoldenEye is your favorite?
No, no,
Single?
no.
No, okay.
It is it's important to me, but it also like represents it's like first person shooters are just like I should just put that in like as its own category
Its
because
own
it's
category. Yeah.
so important to me and it was so like formative for me. Like that was I spent
Mhm,
so
mhm.
many hours playing like LAN parties and over modems and playing video games with my friends. Like we would play Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, Unreal
Yeah, yeah,
Tournament,
yeah, yeah.
Day Defeat, Counter Strike. Like we did it all and like
Mm.
and not just that, like Heretic, Blood, like the offshoots, the Shadow Warrior, like everything that could be made by 3D Realms, Rise of the Triad, just all the PC first person shooter games was my life. Um, but then there's arcade, but then there's the arcade experience. We'd go down
Oh,
to the
yeah,
shore,
yeah, yeah.
we'd go down
Oh,
to the
that's
shore,
another thing.
spend
You
a
talk
month
about
down there.
X-Men, you talk about
X
NBA
Men,
Jam.
Ninja Turtles, Simpsons,
Yeah,
like
dude. All those arcade games, those 4-player ones, as you
oh
know,
yeah,
like, have them as well. We just haven't set it up yet. When the new office, we'll have them all set up. But
sweet.
it's like, yeah, we have X-Men, we have Ninja Turtles. NBA Jam was one, dude. I put so many
Yes,
hours in NBA
I play
Jam.
it every time I go to an
Pizza Hut.
arcade.
Like,
Yeah,
we would go to Pizza Hut. I remember this is my order, is we would go to Pizza Hut, get a personal pan pizza, right? And
yep,
at that time, that little window, it would come with, like, a X-Men comic book with
yes, the
Joe
little one.
Mad. Yeah, and it would have, like, a little box, a little Joe Mad art on it, a little personal pan
Yeah,
pizza, a soda, and then we would go play NBA Jam, and we would just
hell
sit
yeah,
there. We were like, "We're gonna beat this game, we would never win."
dude.
Like, we would get close, but the computer would always win.
Yeah,
But, yeah, like,
my Pizza Hut had the synergy, so they had the Turtles arcade. So it was just like,
oh, man. No, we
you
had to go
know,
to Disneyland for that one half the time because Disneyland had an arcade in it.
yeah.
It was a huge arcade at the time, but, okay, well, what's your console game then? What's your,
Uh,
like, you
I
had
mean,
a
it's
you had
got
to
to be
blow in a
Spider-Man,
cartridge to play this. Which Spider-Man?
Spider-Man PS4.
Oh, really?
Spider-Man
That's so
PS4
new.
is so fun. I know it's so new, but it's like I've
So
been
new.
waiting for it forever.
Oh, but
Like
this is a Spider-Man thing for you though too.
it is.
Like
I mean,
that's a Spider-Man thing because I could say my modern all right, I could say my modern favorite game is probably the Arkham games, like probably Arkham
oh
City,
yeah,
really.
Arkham City
You know,
crushes it all.
yeah, like those games are just like, oh man, those are really great of like modern games.
Yeah,
But there's obviously like a whole other connection to that. But like that makes
completely.
the Spider-Man game. We should end here, but the Spider-Man game. The thing about the Spider-Man game is that I my PlayStation 4 had it didn't break, but like it has a sound problem. It sounds like an
Oh,
engine taking off. And so when the Spider-Man 4 game came out, I would play it and I was like, I couldn't even hear it. Because I would clean it, but it's never got the same. So we bought the PlayStation 5.
yes.
And so the first thing I did was start playing Arkham again.
Yeah,
but but I have like Guardians of the Galaxy and I have
that's a good one
Spider-Man.
too.
Yeah, I got them on the PlayStation 5 to play. And so
Yeah.
those are on the list of things to eventually do once I beat all three Arkham games again.
Yeah.
Dive back in, and then Uncharted on the list because I want to
Oh,
replay all the
sure.
Uncharted games.
Uncharted's sick. No,
Oh
yeah, the
yeah,
newer
Uncharted
games
is
are
great.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah, but that's interesting, Spider-Man. All right, well, okay, to be continued. We're gonna continue this conversation next time. We're gonna talk
see,
about
yeah.
video
So let us
games.
know in the comments. But
Yeah,
yes,
anything else
we
you
will
want
talk
to
about
talk
video games.
about, whether it's comic book related or whatever. We'll
Yeah.
talk.
Yes. But there you go, guys. All Stars. We'll see you guys next month with another episode. But be sure to
Yeah,
subscribe and pre-order Green Arrow. Tell them I just
yes,
want all six. And if you want that
yeah.
happening, don't do
Listen
it
to
just because I
Sal.
did.
Sal's smart. He knows what's going on.
I know what I'm talking about
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
All right. So long, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching.